Hey there, welcome back to this Ocean Life podcast. Thanks for being here. As always, I am your host, Josh Peterson. Midsummer right now. It's just August 2nd of 2019. God, no, it's August 3rd. I can't believe time flies so fast in the summer. But it's a pretty rad time of year. One of my favorites here in the States, in California, because there's a lot of surf lifesaving events going on here in California. We just had our regional state championships, and a bunch of kids here in my town, including my own kids, went down to Southern California, competed, and had a lot of fun, pushed themselves in the water. And so what we're doing right now is got a little mini series on competitive surf lifesaving and profiling a few of the athletes on the U.S. national team. We spoke with Ryan Peraz last episode, and today we have April O'Gorman, who's a world-class competitor in the sport. So today, April shares her stories of discovering surf lifesaving competition, finding her competitive strengths in the sport, in the water, on the beach, and learning the skills and techniques she's employed for great success. We hear of her mentors in the sport that have helped April progress from the regional to the national, then onto the world stage of surf lifesaving competition, her time in Australia training with some of the legends in the sport who she's looked up to, and just great stories of competing on the U.S. national team. April also shares her perspective on the community of surf lifesaving competitors, her approach to training and competing in her favorite events such as board paddling and the Iron, a multi-discipline event of board paddling, swimming, running, and surf ski paddling. It sounds gnarly, and April's crushing it. She today, again, August 2019, is set to defend her current national title at the upcoming U.S. national event. And April shares her enjoyment of providing back to the next generation of Groms to help them grow their love of competitive surf lifesaving and finding their own success in the sport. Finally, talks about her synergy with Buell Surf and Rescue, my friends, a local California company pushing the sport forward with innovative new equipment design and Grom training cramps. So, a lot of fun stuff. Hope you're getting out there enjoying the summertime, picking up trash, and like I always say, minimizing plastic. Let's cut it out completely. And with that, let's get into the ocean life of April Gorman. All right, so April, today, lifeguarding on the beach, New Smyrna Beach, Florida.
Yeah, Shark Week.
Oh yeah, were all those guys out there?
Yeah, we usually always make national news on Shark Week, but of course, I think all the sharks knew it was Shark Week because we had 2 bites this week, and we haven't had any in weeks. And of course, we have 2 during Shark Week.
Whoa, what are the odds of that happening? So, what were the bites? I mean, were they like super bad? I mean, probably every shark bite's bad, but like, what went down?
No, they're really actually not that bad. New Smyrna, where I guard, is the shark bite capital of the world.
Oh
But
my God.
they're like dogs. Like we count them every day, but it's like there was a high school club where I went to high school where literally if you got bit by a shark, you could be a part of this club. Um,
So that common.
yeah, they're just like a dog bite and a cool story. You get like 10 stitches and you're all good.
So, did you get to join the club then at one point?
No, no, luckily I have not.
So, what kind of sharks are these guys biting people?
They're usually black tips or nurse or spinners are what we see the most. They'll go
Yeah,
jumping out of the water and pretty
right.
crazy.
Wow. So you got a full assortment of sharks that you have you sitting on the tower or watching day to day.
Yeah, I usually see them when I'm sitting down at more towards the inlet. They like to call it Shark Alley, and
Yeah.
when you're up there, it's typically where you see them. That's where I'm usually on the beach, but actually this past summer, because I'm a little bit more senior, I tend to be more dispatch and up in the control tower and controlling
Yeah.
the radio and stuff. So I don't see too many anymore.
Ah, nice. So, like New Smyrna Beach, I've never been, but I actually ended up surfing with a few guys when I was in Costa Rica a long time ago who were from New Smyrna Beach, and I heard good things about it. Like there's waves and a pretty neat little surf culture and everything. So, talk about, I mean, first the beach itself, the community of kind of water sports folks and everything, and then kind of what lifeguarding is like other than the shark attacks and stuff. What else do you guys have to deal with?
Yeah, so it's really crazy that whole kind of beach side of New Smyrna. I don't think my family really got into it until I basically became a guard. My dad was actually born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I was born there. Grew up in New Smyrna, but I was always a swimmer, and I was a pool swimmer from the time I was 8, and pretty much did that until I was 16, and then I became a guard for Volusia County, and I was going to New Smyrna Beach High School, and so I stayed there at that station for work, and I think that's really when I actually fully dove into the surf culture of New Smyrna and just what it kind of entails. Definitely really involved with the lifeguard community. It's definitely ties hand in hand. Usually the people that you see out there were guards at one point in New Smyrna
Yeah.
or know them or somehow connected.
Oh, cool. So it's a pretty tight little community of like water people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. So how was that transition for you? I mean, as a kid growing up in the pool, I mean, strong in the water for sure. But you know, if typically like if your family is not dunking in the ocean like a lot, and you're not out in the ocean a lot, you know, it takes you a while later on in life to kind of learn, you know, the ocean, you know, a little bit. So that transition you mentioned when you're kind of 16ish to the ocean from the pool. I mean, what was that like? Because now you're super strong in the ocean. Now you're saving people in the ocean, et cetera. So how was that kind of transition from the pool into the ocean for you?
Well, we grew up at the beach still, but it was just weird because I just never really was fully in love with the beach.
Yeah.
I just found it like I was really sticky in the sand. Like I
Yeah.
just was never like a huge like I just wasn't always like dying to go to the beach. But I mean, growing up in Florida, we were still there. My
Right.
parents were definitely still dunking me in the ocean.
Yeah.
Um, so I think I was a lot stronger in the ocean than I really even realized.
Right.
Um, and then now it's so funny because I hated the sand and the salt water and all that, and now I just could roll around in it all day and it doesn't really bother me too much.
Yeah, now it's life-giving basically.
Yep, yep.
So basically like no junior lifeguards and stuff. I mean, you kind of jumped in as a late teen into the whole surf life-saving world.
Yeah, it's really strange because, like, I mean, most of the people that I'm on the national team with, I mean, and it's why I'm so passionate about teaching people about surf life saving and coaching people now because it was really sad for me to like find this whole world and this whole culture that I had no idea existed and that I know I would have loved when I was
Yeah.
younger. But yeah, I just didn't even get a chance to find out about it until I was 16. So now I just love teaching and coaching people and telling people about it because I think that everyone should be able to.
Yeah, oh, I totally agree. I mean, it's such the raddest thing for kids growing up to be immersed in it, you know, and challenge themselves in the water, but also have like strong mentors and coaches and like a nice framework and structure of safety, keeping them sort of, you know, in the bounds of safety as they're doing paddling, swimming, you know, skis, whatever that might be. But 16 is not bad. I mean, you could have been 36 or something
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
found it, but 16 is still pretty good.
yeah, definitely. I was lucky enough to find it then, but yeah, like I said, I don't think I really realized how strong I was in the ocean, but definitely working as a lifeguard, you see how common it is, I think, with a lot of people in the US that just really aren't familiar with the ocean at all and have no
Yeah.
idea what like a rip current is or just how to manage getting under waves or getting over waves. And that was just something that I just kind of, I think, took for granted growing up with and didn't really realize that so many people don't really know how to handle those conditions.
Yeah, I know. We are super, super lucky. So you jump into the world of surf life saving when you're 16, and that means like potentially two things. One is you can start, you know, like you know, rescuing people, maybe sit in towers, being a lifeguard, you know, and or you know, competing, you know, on the beach and in events. And so it sounds like you started doing both.
Yeah, so I really my first summer when I was 16, it was when nationals was in Daytona Beach. So I was a really good swimmer in the ocean, and I didn't really know how to paddle or ski or do any of that stuff yet. So they were like, "It's in Daytona. You should just go swim. Just go do it." And so I just went, and I definitely did not think that I was going to be where I am now. I just thought it was going to be this fun thing I was going to go just do, and it's in Daytona. And I definitely like got there, and it was really sad that all I knew how to do was swim, because I did surf and did do that kind of stuff. So all the paddleboard stuff, I was like, I feel like I should know how to do this, and I want to
Yeah.
learn how to do this. And so it was really sad just like being a swimmer and only being able to do a really restricted amount of events. And I wanted to like do everything I possibly could. So I like threw together random teams and with the most just outlying people and was like, hey, please do this with me.
Oh,
Because
really? Cool.
I just wanted to do it. And I had a great time. And I basically like after that nationals was like, all right, I'm gonna like teach myself how to paddle, and I'm gonna before like next year, like I'm gonna be able to do all that. And that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, that's cool. So how did you do? Like I mean, your first, I mean, was this your first like, competitive surf life saving event? Was the nationals?
Yeah, it was. I didn't
Yeah.
even know that I was allowed to do U19 at the time. So I just like did it open, and then everyone was like, "Why didn't you do U19?" I like didn't even know that was an option. But I did.
Yeah. So how did you do? How did you place?
I made finals in the swim, and
Good.
I think it was the run swim run, and then I just was in like random taplin
Yeah.
relays and random rescue tube relays.
Right.
And
So that kind of just fired you up, like you said. You finished that, and it just got you just amped. And so the next year, if you fast forward, then you kind of just got more serious because now you knew what was there for you. It was kind of like exploratory, day at the beach. Competing, having fun, but it got you amped. And so then the following year, you go back and sort of what was that like? I mean, getting more serious about competing.
oh yeah. So I mean, Volusia County had these like 20-year-old force field paddle boards at the station that were like definitely made for somebody probably 50 pounds heavier than me. And
Yeah.
I was like trying to paddle around on them by myself in New Smyrna, like in the winter, and was just getting like pummeled and had no idea what I was doing. And finally, I think somebody just like took pity on me and was like, "Hey, I think you should have AJ Miller go show you how to like actually do that." So AJ Miller is one of our captains in Daytona Beach, and he's been doing it for a while. And he basically took me under his wing and showed me how to paddle and laughed at me a lot. And I ended up doing a couple just like local races then the next summer when I was 17. And definitely just, I remember I was using these really terrible force field old boards. And then he let me use one of his like good actual good boards at my first paddle board competition. And Aiden, my brother, came with me, and he like wanted to record it and stuff. And I was like, no, I'm about to fall on my face. Like don't record this. And he let me use his board, and I went running in, and I came in second behind Eva Porter, who had just been
Wow.
on the national team when IRSC was in Australia. This is like 2016, so it was right after they went in 2015.
Wow.
And we went running up the beach together after, and she like finishes, and she's like, are you trying to make like the U19 world's team or something? And I like, this is how naive I was. I was like, oh no. I was like, I'm trying to swim in college. I was like, I'm not trying to do that. And I was like, maybe next year. And she's like, worlds is every 2 years. And I was like, oh.
You're like, oh yeah, I knew that.
I mean, she like has to still laugh about that conversation because like fast forward like 2 months later, and then I was going on the U19 team to Worlds. So,
No way.
so she had to like have a little giggle about that.
That's classic. So you were just kind of, that's a cool story. I mean, you show up, you're 16, you find surf lifesaving, you compete, you get excited, you come back the year later, and then you crush it. And then like 2 months after that next round, you're like on the world stage competing on the U.S. team.
Yeah, so they told me basically after like regionals that summer, they were like, if you want to go on the U19 team to Worlds, you need to go out to California and you need to basically do every single event you possibly can.
Yeah.
So I learned how to ski in like a month. and was like, all right, I'm going to do everything I can. And did like every single U19 race in California, and then competed open after. And they invited me on the U19 team, but they invited me as a swimmer.
Mhm.
And I had like 2 weeks to like learn all the pool rescue stuff. And so that was a whole interesting learning curve too.
So what was that?
And
The pool rescue stuff? What was that you had to learn?
Oh, so pool rescue at Worlds, they don't really do it on the other international surf life saving competitions, but for Worlds, you have 2 days at the beach doing all like the normal stuff we do at nationals, and then you have
Yeah.
2 days at the pool.
Oh, wow.
And the pool stuff is gnarly, and you have this you have this 70-pound mannequin. I think he weighs 70 pounds. This mannequin, and it's like a half of a body, and you're carrying him with one arm and doing like one arm freestyle, and it's like long
Wow.
course, and everyone's in tech suits, and you have like,
Whoa, really?
yeah, it's crazy. It's like its own sport over in Europe.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
I had
really
no
wild.
idea. So you had to learn all these different races in the pool and figure those out and
Oh
then go
yeah.
do them.
Yeah, basically everyone in the US, because we just don't really do it in the US.
Yeah.
We just basically have to watch a bunch of YouTubes and like figure it out.
Wow.
Yeah, so Hallie Peterson, who also used to work for Volusia County at the time, was training with me, and so she was on the Open Worlds team at the same time. So we both like had like 2 weeks to like learn and just tried to do the best we could.
So you went over there to swim and then but now you're also are I mean at some point you also started like paddling in the world events too for the US team, right?
Yeah, so I left that world kind of upset that I was just a swimmer, and I sat on the beach for 2 days and watched all of these other people do these events, and I just swam, and I did the surf swim and the taplin and rescue tube, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it was really sad because obviously that was much more of the part that I enjoyed than the pool stuff, which they
Right.
really took me for.
Yep.
Um, so I left that worlds and basically said that I would never go on another international team just as a swimmer again. And I haven't. So
Yeah. Rad. So then did you have to refine your paddling skills, or was it just a matter of you just had to focus more on it and just place better in some of the events to get selected for the paddle as well on the team?
I definitely just needed to a lot more training on it. Like
Mhm.
that month of skiing before Worlds was definitely like not going to cut it.
Right, right.
So I really spent like I got back from Worlds and it was my senior year of high school, and I really didn't think that I was going to be on another international team until I basically got done with college, because that tends to be how it goes in the US, and I think ultimately our downfall against a lot of these other countries.
Right.
um, all of our really good athletes are swimmers or doing some other sport in college, and so their colleges tend to make them stop for 4 years. So I really
Oh,
thought that
wow.
like Worlds was going to be it for a while.
Yeah.
And I got back, and I mean, when I thought I like experienced this whole new world when I went to USLA Nationals, and then I got to Worlds, and I was like, what? I was like, this is crazy. They have like professional series in Australia. Like, it's so much
Yeah.
bigger than I ever thought.
Yeah. Like paid athletes. Like, how's
Yeah,
that?
yeah, definitely did not know that was going on. um, and I basically just like my whole entire senior year in high school, I watched like every episode of like Ocean Six and Summer of Surf and Nutrigrain series. I think
Oh,
there
yeah.
is on YouTube. Like, that's all I would do
Right.
every day.
Really. That's hot. Just
um,
got some tips from those guys, like the Aussies who've just been at it for so long.
yeah, it definitely fired me up, and I mean, it's definitely, I think, how I ultimately improved a lot paddling and skiing was just watching those races. And being a distance swimmer, iron was always my best one, I felt like, because it was just so it took the most endurance out of all the surf life saving ones, and it was just
Yeah.
I liked it because it was a little of everything. And swimming for me, especially being a distance swimmer, just got so monotonous, and you're just
Right.
in a
Right.
pool swimming back and forth for hours. So the fact that it's always changing, not only because it's in an ocean, but always like changing just craft wise between a paddleboard and a ski and swimming and running. And it was always something different.
Yeah.
That it really drew me a lot more towards that.
Right. That's solid. And so so then what year was that? So actually,
So that was
was that, so you went,
27.
yeah.
I went to Worlds in 2016, and then
Yep.
2017 I graduated high school and then went on my first open team with the US as a craft person and for
Okay.
iron to Sanyo in Japan that summer.
Yeah. 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 So how was that?
Um,
I mean, what was that like?
I think Tom, the head coach at the time, he had known me for a really long time because he's one of the officers at our beach in Volusia County. And I think I really scared him because I was so amped to go for iron and I felt like I was so ready. And then I remember the first day and iron was the last event. So I competed in basically almost every event at San Diego that day and was just running around, and I think I was just so busy and my mind was focused on all these other events. And then I sat there before that iron, and
Yeah.
Ryan Perot was my handler, and so he's trying to set up my ski and is trying to get my paddle ready and stuff. And I just there was no words. I was just silent.
Like,
And I was just kind of freaking out in my head and was just sitting there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just spent a year watching New Terrain and
oh,
watching Ocean Six, and now I'm about to go do an iron against Maddie Dunn and Jessica Miller.
wow.
And I was watching them on YouTube, and
No
this is
way.
only my third iron I've ever done in a competition.
And so it just hit you. You're like, oh, here I am. I'm like about
Yeah,
to do this.
yeah, it was a little. I think Tom was really nervous. He was like, "Are you okay? Are you gonna be good?"
So describe what an iron is, like the different legs and what you actually do.
So, a surf iron race is a prone paddle race, a swim race, and a surf ski race, basically all into one. And you have run legs in between each of those. And you don't know the order until you show up the day of.
Oh, cool.
And I think a lot of people consider it the premier event of surf lifesaving. And
Yeah.
I think it just embodies so many things, even with lifesaving, just the fact that you don't even know until the morning of. I mean,
Right.
that was something I really had to change, I think, about myself when I became a lifeguard, is coming from a swimming background where you have a heat sheet and you have a
Right.
lane and event and you know exactly where you need to be at what time, and it's so structured. So then you show up at a lifeguard event or even for work for lifeguarding and you have no idea most of the
Right.
time what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. The predictability is gone. And
Yeah.
I can see that too, like with an iron event where, you have these three, well, actually four really, because you're running in between, but call them three core kind of disciplines. And you might be really strong at one or like pretty good at all of them, but you have I'm guessing like you would have your strategy, so to speak. So let's say you crush it in the swim. That's your best thing. So you're like, I'm going to go all out in the swim. But if the swim's first, you might need to throttle back because you don't want to waste too much energy because you have these other two things or whatever that is. So you show up that day, and I'm guessing when they say here's the format, this, and this, you have to then like figure out how you're gonna what your strategy is gonna be, how you're gonna play it. Is that right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's definitely something I didn't really learn and didn't really realize until I ended up actually going to Australia and then training with Northcliffe.
Yeah,
And that was a game changer.
really.
um, and definitely had to learn that there.
So like that one in Sanyo in Japan. So first, actually, a question before that. So how long are the distance of each of those legs, the ski, the swim, and the prone paddle? How long are those approximately?
I think USLA standard is the ski leg is 800 meters, the board leg is roughly 600 meters, and I think the swim is roughly 350 or something weird like that.
Yeah,
It's never that though. It
right.
always is between tides and currents and formats, it's always changing. I mean, now a big thing in the sport. Irons are shifting more towards M-shaped courses. So like that's what we just did
Oh
at
yeah,
Worlds this past year. Yeah, and those are gnarly. Those are like 2-hour races usually, and
really?
yeah, those are rough.
Because you're like with a little bit of like in and out of the surf as well. Like that's the point of the M. Is that right? You go in and
Yeah,
out of
so
surf.
they like to do that format. That format's made to be done in surf, so that you have that constant in and out of that break, which tends
Yeah,
to be the tricky part.
right.
Um, but it is grueling. I mean, I did I just did the crossing for a cure with Casey Francis, one of the girls on the national team, in the
Oh, right
beginning of
on.
June. Yeah, and his 80-mile paddle from Bimini to Lake Worth, Florida. And
Yeah,
I thought that was going to be the hardest thing I ever did. And
right.
then I did an M shape, the enduro 3 rounds. And that, no, I was like, I'll go back and cross the ocean. Like, that was
No
way
way.
easier.
Really? So, wow. What was so? I mean, it sounds heavy. I'm not diminishing. I'm just curious. Like, what was so like hard about it for
I think
you?
because it's just nonstop. Like
Really?
you are sprinting, like it's like a sprint race, but for 2 hours. And so
Oh
there's
man.
just there's no break. Like you're
Right.
just sprinting flat out all of it. And that was just like you get I remember finishing like the first and I think I looked at it wrong too. I was looking at it as like 9 legs. And because
Yeah.
it's three and then you have that times three. And so I was looking
Right.
at like 9 legs and I finished leg two and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to
Really?
do that run. Like I have to do that transition 7 more times.
Oh, and that gets in your head.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So that was, you said 2017, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're jumping all over the place.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so
Good.
so
All good. Good.
Japan
No, that's totally cool.
so Japan was 2017, and then nationals that year was back in Daytona. So that was really cool. I felt like it was good, like redemption. I like felt like I knew what I was doing, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I can paddle and ski here, and it was my home beach again, so that was really fun.
Yeah. How did you place there in that event?
I actually got my first national title there.
Nice.
I did a couple events on. It was my last year as U19, and I did U19 and Open, and I just did a couple events on the U19 day to warm up. And I got my first national title in the surf ski. Um,
Sweet.
yeah, that was cool. And then I got my second national title in the Taplin with Hallie Peterson. And then another guard from Jacksonville who joined in for our Taplin. But technically, because Taplin didn't happen last year at nationals, we have to defend our title this year.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
hot. You guys ready to do that?
yeah, we think we have a pretty good team. It's me and Hallie and Casey Francis right now, and then I possibly Amanda Calabrese as our runner, maybe.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, that's killer. Geez, so then 2018, you guys did really good too. You won, correct?
Yeah. So I mean, there a lot happened in between 17 and 18. I started my first year at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, and I was swimming for them. And my coach happened to actually live in Australia for a time, and he was living with two guys that used to be a part of the Currumbin Surf Club. So lucky for me that he actually knows what surf lifesaving is. Um,
Yeah. Right,
so
right.
yeah, I got extremely lucky. And I managed to like kind of scam my way over to Australia. But
Nice.
I was going to SCAD for film and television, and my spring quarter. So our girls team for SCAD won NAI nationals in March, and then our spring quarter for SCAD is supposed to start right after that. And I got a internship with the production company that films all the surf lifesaving events in Australia for Fox Sports
Oh, how
for
cool.
yeah for that spring. So I went over. after basically like the week after we won nationals, I like just packed up my bags and left Savannah and flew to Australia and moved into the Blue House, which was like Northcliffe's international house, where they just kind of let all their international competitors like live.
Oh, that's
And
rad.
yeah, it was very hectic and insane. And it was amazing. I mean, my mind was kind of like blown.
Yeah, because you're like surrounded by like world class athletes like all the time, probably.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I was helping film the videos that like a year before that I was like
Yeah,
trying to learn
you're
from on YouTube.
watching.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And was got to race at Aussies and yeah, was training with these athletes that it was like, oh my gosh, I was watching you on YouTube. And
That's killer.
yeah, and Naomi Flood was our girls coach. She was an Olympic kayaker for Australia in 2012 and 2016, and did Nutrigrain and all of that, and was super successful with that. And she is by far the best coach in Australia right now for surf life saving for
Yeah,
women's.
cool. So then, I mean, you must have picked up some like big and small tips and tricks from that crew, and then you, I mean, did that when you got back to U.S. soil and got back with your routine here? Did you feel like you had kind of an edge on this the domestic American competitors because you had seen a whole different level out there?
I don't think necessarily like tricks wise. I think
Yeah,
just training wise, their
yeah,
mentality of how they train for it. It's, I mean, because it is their job and it
yeah.
is, they are professional
Right.
athletes. And so I think in the US, a lot of times people in the US just look at it as like this fun thing and they don't really look at it as like how normal professional sports are kind of looked at in the US. Like
Yeah.
if you're trying to be a professional swimmer, you are swimming twice a day and you are doing weights and everything is geared towards that. And for some reason people in the US can grasp that concept with other sports, but with
Yep.
surf life saving, just it hasn't, people
Yep.
haven't figured that out. And so I think that was the most important part that I learned there
Mm,
is managing like, okay, how much should I be doing, when should I be doing these things, like, and just that kind of training routine down, I think was the most important part.
right. Right. That's killer. And plus, I can only imagine like the relationships and the fun that you made with those folks that you now see, and you could always go back and see them. That's also one of the neat things that I like about, I mean, surf lifesaving in general. It's one of those cool sports where you compete hard against somebody, shoulder to shoulder in an event, but when it's all said and done, it's like a hug and a smile and a high five, and it's super. There's a lot of camaraderie between beaches,
Oh,
nationalities, countries.
absolutely.
It's so rad, and so it's neat that you need to know that you have this bond with these guys and gals in a wholly totally different country. That you can just jump back into at any point in time if and when you can.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like that is by far my favorite part of this
Yeah,
sport. I mean, me, Hallie, and Casey, and Jenna, and Kelsey, and all of these girls who were all on the national team together, and yeah, we're all gonna race against each other in a week. But
yeah,
that is my favorite part about this sport.
right,
We finished that race and we are able to give each other a hug and say that was an awesome race and like that
yep,
was so much fun racing you in that. And I think it's so much different than other sports, at least that I've seen. I mean,
yep,
growing up in swimming, it is not like that.
right.
Nobody, you are not talking behind that block, and like it is so different. And like us, we have so many like pictures of us like on the line at nationals. It is finals, and we're
Yeah,
literally like there's pictures of us like just like we're cracking jokes and
yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
wait, like what buoy
right.
are we supposed to be going around like?
Yeah, yeah, I know. And I think it's like kind of the fringe. I mean, look, I mean, depends where you're at, but let's just call it kind of the fringe aspect of this sport. I mean, especially here in the States, right? Where it's like, again, like you said, nobody really knows what the sport is unless you live on a coastal town with the beach, with the program. You kind of don't know what it is. Now, Australia is different because they televise these things. These guys are like on, cereal boxes. It's a totally different level. But I think that's part of why, and like pro paddling is another great example. It's such a fringe sport that it's like it's like, hey, brothers and sisters, doesn't matter. There's so few of us in the world who actually do these things that when you get together and you have these times together, it's like, the competition's there, but like the camaraderie is super strong. It's pretty rad.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to explain yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that's what all of us
Yeah.
like. We have all these friends outside of the sport and family members, even. And I think it's just such a close bond because you
Yeah.
don't have to
Yeah.
like explain to them what the
That's
difference
true.
between like a surf ski and a prone paddleboard are.
Yeah, you totally nailed it. It's so refreshing that somebody just gets what you're doing and that you
It's
get
a
what they're
different
doing.
language.
Yeah, you're right. It's funny. So then, yeah, okay. So then 2018-ish, like last summer competing at nationals, how did you do then?
Yeah, so I this is so crazy, but so Harriet Brown, who was the current world champion, Ironwoman world champion at the time,
Wow.
and I was training with her at Northcliffe. They asked her to come over for the 2018 nationals and do a couple of clinics beforehand in the Northeast, and they asked if I would be like the U.S. athlete that would go with her because I trained with her at Northcliffe. And the time that I was actually in Northcliffe, Harriet was training for Molokai and I was training for like USLA time. And
Yeah.
so I was kind of like on my own with Naomi Flood coaching me. And she was
Wow.
like off somewhere in the ocean, like paddling
Paddling
50
for
miles.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't actually really know each other when we were in Australia, but they were just like, yeah, you guys like know each other. So they kind of just threw us together. And I was freaking out. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like she didn't really know this, but like, I was learning how to pop waves, like watching you on YouTube, like a year ago. And now I am doing clinics with you in New York. Like, I was freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, I mean, that was mind blowing. And we're really close now. And it was really awesome just to like have somebody there that was kind of able to I think more so just like guide me too at that nationals and just be like, okay, no, April, like I know you want to cheer these people on, but like you need to go rest, or like,
Right.
okay, you
Right.
need to be doing this. And so I think even just like having her there, just like to help me with that stuff because I really just didn't know.
Yeah.
Um, I was super, super thankful for that. And we had an awesome time in New York doing the clinics and being able to like share it with all those kids. And
Oh, cool.
then got to Virginia and got to race her and Brielle and all of our USA people. And yeah, and ended up managing the Grabo Wind and Iron. It's the last
Wow.
event, last race of nationals. It was
Epic.
it's ready to be done.
Wow. And so of all the events that you did and still do today, is there one that's like the most special? Like, is it the iron, or is there one event in particular that you really, really, really want to take?
Oh no, it was always Iron.
Is it?
It
Yeah.
it was the everything that I think happened to me in 2018 is kind of crazy. Is like they were all very distant goals for me that ended up happening a lot sooner than I had expected. I always told myself like as a senior in high school, like one day I'm gonna go train in Australia, and that's gonna
Yeah.
happen. And that ended up happening a lot sooner than expected. And same with Iron. I was like, one day I am going to win Iron. And that
Yeah.
day ended up coming a lot sooner than I really expected.
Yeah.
But that was definitely Iron is definitely I think the most special to me. Is the one I was
Yeah.
really gunning for.
That's awesome. Well, congrats for doing that. I mean, that's so rad. I'm such a fan of like believing, in yourself and setting a goal. And like you said, you're like, well, you didn't expect it to happen so soon, but your conviction of and belief that you could do it must, I mean, I believe, this is my own like weird little perspective on the world, but is that like, when your conviction is strong, your actions follow suit, and you trained, you did what you needed to do, and you got there. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a tough summer, but I mean, it was definitely all worth it.
Yeah. So talk about like the mental aspect of all of these sports, and maybe especially the iron.
being like a super hardcore, event. Sounds gnarly, but
Mhm.
there's two aspects to any of these things we're talking about, which is the physical piece, right? Training, getting your body right, nutrition, and all that. But there's a heavy mental aspect, even down to, like you just mentioned, you're on the beach, you want to cheer for others, but like a Harriet Brown or somebody's like, hey, you need to go get in your zone. You need to like chill, you need to rest, but also kind of maybe get your mind in order. So talk about the mental aspect that you bring to all of this.
Um, it's really weird. Iron is definitely, I don't know if it's just because it's such a special event to me, but I don't really get extremely nervous before races, and especially when it's other races. But I mean, my mom, I think she has this picture that kind of grasps all of that, about my mental space when it comes to iron. But
Yeah.
it's like before I did iron in 2018, and I'm like sitting in this beach chair, and I literally just have a towel over my head, and I was like, nobody talk to me. I was like,
Yeah.
I can't, like, I just can't deal with it right now. And I literally was just like sitting there with this towel over my head, and I was just had to like be in a quiet space for a while.
Yeah.
Um, I think like the best way to sum up an iron with the both physical and mental is actually, I think, the greatest piece of advice I got when I was in Australia, and it was from Naomi Flood. She told me when I was telling her how nervous I kind of was going into the 2018 nationals, because it really was only my third nationals that I was doing, knowing how to ski and paddle. And I was super young in it. I really had only been training, doing it for 3 years. And she said to me, she was like, an iron hurts for everyone. And she's
Hmm.
like, it's going to be painful. And she's like, but it's physical pain. And eventually that's going to go away. And letting somebody beat you that you know shouldn't, she's like, that is mental pain, and that is going to haunt you, and it stays with you a lot longer.
Yeah, man. So profound and true.
Yeah, and those words, I don't know, they definitely stuck with me, I think, throughout the entire season of 2018. And with every race I went into, I think I just kind of went in with that, and it was just like, all right, it's gonna hurt, but like it's gonna hurt for everyone, so.
Yeah, I love this topic, and for folks who listen to podcasts regularly, because I'm just a fan of the mental aspect of anything we do, and especially in the ocean. There's the physical piece we mentioned, like you got to get ready when you're surfing big waves or diving 300 feet and holding your breath, or doing a prone sprint race. And then there's the mental piece, and what you mentioned was, and all the folks I interview and talk to who've done Molokai to Wahoo, but also other like endurance sports. It's like you're going to hit a wall. I mean, most people will hit a wall, and especially for myself, who've done those things. And that was one of the responses when I asked, hey, what's your kind of game plan? Like when you mentally start to break down, we all do different things to get out of it. And one of those answers was just as you mentioned, which is somebody, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but they're like, I just realized and remind myself that everybody else right now in this race is feeling the same way. So you kind of quit feeling sorry for yourself because everybody else is in the same boat, and you can kind of use that to move on. So, and I get that for the iron, it just sounds hectic, but you got to have some way to keep your mind in a good place.
Yeah, and I mean, the definitely what I learned from Floody too is just in iron, one of the most important things is not making any mistakes.
Yeah.
Is you might not be like rushing, running through the thing as fast as you possibly can, but doing every single tiny little thing perfectly. Like
Right.
when you go to pick up that board, it is going to be perfect. You're not going to
Yeah.
run and try to do as fast as you can and miss it. You're not going to fall off of it when you're trying to jump on it. It's just calm and being very in control. And I think that comes back to that mental part, is like not freaking out mentally if somebody is in front of you right now,
Yep.
but just like being able to calmly not make any mistakes and just trust in your own training and the hours that you've put in, and just know that it's gonna work out and not have that freak out moment.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great perspective for sure, especially on those races where you're so close to people, probably the whole way. There's other endurance sports where you don't see anybody for like an hour, or maybe you're bumping shoulders with somebody for 5 hours. But yeah, being able to slow yourself down enough where the quality of your movements are strong, and that's, like you said, you waste less energy, you're more elegant, and it pays off, in the end. So then switching gears a little bit, at some point here, you hooked up with the Buell Surf Rescue Team, right? So that's Duke Brower, who's a good friend of
Yeah.
mine. We've done all kinds of stuff in the water, and he connected us and everything. And so how'd that come about? And then just talk about what you're doing today with Buell.
It's kind of a funny story, but when me and Casey started trying to fundraise for Crossing for a Cure, we knew Amanda and Hayden and all these people that were associated with Buell, but honestly, we didn't really know what it was.
Yeah.
And she reached out to Duke first and was just like, hey, is there any way you'd be able to help us with the crossing? And Duke was like, well, actually, we were going to like reach out to you guys. I'm super glad you reached out to us. And he starts talking to Casey about just really what they do with Buell and their kind of mission about especially their rescue side and just wanting to reach out and like help it expand and teach the younger generation and all of those good things. And Casey is still kind of newer to the sport too, and is still getting really involved with it. And she called me after, and she's like, "Hey, I think you really like need to like call Duke and like give him a call." And I was like, "Okay." And I'm going to school for SCAD now for industrial design, and so I called Duke and I was like, hey, I don't know if you know, but I'm going to SCAD right now for industrial design. And um, I really want to do industrial design because I want to potentially make surf life saving equipment in the US that is decent, and because I want to see the sport grow in the US, and I'm really passionate about teaching the younger generation and about watching it grow and all those good things. And he was like, wow, that's so funny, that's exactly what our mission statement is. And so that's kind of just how it happened.
Yeah. That's cool. And so basically they sponsor you, and I mean you wear the wetsuit, stay warm with their stuff, and then and all that. That's hot, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, they definitely, I'm so glad we were able to get in touch with them, and they'll keep me nice and warm in Savannah this next year. And they have so many rad kids out there, and I got to go out to Santa Cruz and do a bunch of training with them. And so I'm just really glad of all the people that I've been able to meet through them, and all the memories, good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I love what Duke and Ryan Buell are doing, and you might, oh, geez, I don't know, when were you out here in Santa Cruz? How long ago was that?
It was the middle slash end of June.
Okay, geez, I wonder if oh, I think we missed that one. So my daughters are 13, junior guards, and they just trained with Ryan Praz last week, and they've done a couple different ones with Amanda. I think we might have missed that one when you were here, unfortunately. But that's such a great. I'm such a huge, I mean, fan of two things, and what you just mentioned. One is training the next generation, and it may not even so much training, just inspiring or just showing them what is here for them in the world of surf lifesaving, and it's so cool because the kids see somebody who, like you and Amanda and Ryan Praz and others, who are like fit, healthy, kicking ass in life and doing such good things, and then strong on the beach in the water, and it fires them up, to just, noticed it in my kids and other kids in the Santa Cruz area, but then also like the gear, and that's, I think, as you mentioned, like providing, the gear. We actually had this conversation with Ryan Praz and Ryan Buell. It's like some of the gear stayed the same for like 20 years. Like the pro and paddle boards I was paddling in the 90s are like kind of still, or have been, very similar to what the kids have today. And that's changing. And Buell's a big part of that, and other companies too. But I love your angle of learning industrial design and then being able to apply that to something like this.
Yeah,
That's cool.
It has been a really, I mean, I'm so glad that I ended up switching to industrial design for that. It's been really cool to see that. But yeah, I mean, I hear about people like your daughter being 13, and I mean, all I can say to them is like, I didn't even start paddling until I was 17.
Yeah.
Like that blows my mind. Like you're 13 and you can start, like you can be paddling right now. That just like, it makes me so excited for them.
Yeah. No, it is way cool. So then here we are. I mean, like, geez, what, a week or two from Nationals
One
2019?
one week from today.
Yeah. So how are you feeling? And what do you expect? What are you thinking?
Um, right now I'm counting 23 races in total over the 3 days. So it's gonna be a lot of racing, but that endurance background, hopefully it'll pay off, and I'm excited. I get to do all of my relays with Hallie and Casey and all my training people, and so I'm just excited to be able to see all them and see my California people, and
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so it'll be
cool.
good.
So is there like a taper period, like training, like for a big event, and like the week before you like chill, you kind of taper and just let your body rest? I mean, is there a similar like approach you take for training for a 3 day period where you're just basically going all day long?
Um, you would think yes, but when I was in Australia, they were kind of like, no. It's like swimming. I definitely like do a lot more sprint stuff leading up to it, like you would if you were doing a swimming taper. But for surf life saving stuff, like it'll be like, yeah, like the two or day before, 2 days before, you do a lot
Yeah,
shorter, just like, okay, we're gonna work on just starts and finishes, so we're not going to like pound out 3 miles of paddling or anything. But I mean, they still like that Saturday before. Saturdays are for irons, and it doesn't matter if you have nationals that week, you're still going to do irons on that Saturday.
right, right.
So
So you're just basically you're working all the way up to the day of nationals, and then all 3 days through it.
basically, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
back down a couple days before for our clinic on Tuesday, but
Yep. Yep.
I'll be full on.
Nice. Well, I wish you the best of luck. And so, do you have a target on your back being the Iron defending champion from last year?
I mean, I think so, but like you said, all of us, like, I think that the people, my competition that I really am going to be racing against is my training partners that I'm also
Yeah.
doing relays with, and
Right. Right. Right.
is my national team members. And so I don't know. I think it's that awkward topic, like you were saying, like we all are so happy for each other when we do well, and but you also at the same time want to be that one that comes out on top. So
Right. Yeah.
um so you're going to give it everything you have until you cross the finish line, but if
Yep.
it's not you first, you're still happy. So at the end of the day, it's like it's going to be a good day either way.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love your perspective, and that's such a great way to play it. Because in the end, it's like you're so lucky to have the health and then the opportunity to do these things with these rad people. It's neat to be able to enjoy that, and then, like you said, just go as hard as you can. And what will be in either way, you're going to be here, have a bunch of great memories with a bunch of rad people doing something really good and fun.
Yeah. Yep. That's the plan.
Good, good. Well, I wish you the best of luck. I'll check in and see how you do and everything, and talk to Duke. And I want to thank you, April, for spending your time. I know it's super late back there, and you got to work tomorrow back in the beach. Hopefully, there's minimal shark bites you have to attend to tomorrow.
Hopefully.
Yeah, right
Thank you
on.
so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been really cool, and yeah, keep crushing it. And best of luck next week at Nationals.
Thank you, Josh.
Right on. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to another podcast episode. Can't do it without you, and so thrilled to have you here supporting myself and the podcast and all the guests continually. Always appreciate a positive rating on your podcast app, whether it be Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. Just helps grow the podcast and spread awareness. So thanks for that. And then any social media mentions, always super appreciative. And if you know somebody who you think would be great to have on the podcast to share about their ocean life, please hit me up. I'd love to chat with them. Or if you think you'd like to, let me know. Email is josh@thisoceanlife.tv. All right. Thanks, guys.